What's going on, guys? Alex here, and today I'm answering your tax questions from Reddit. Now, today's question has to do with self-employment income and how it pertains to a site called OnlyFans. OnlyFans, I can't even say it. But anyway, we're going to discuss the tax implications here, so let's take a look at the question. Hi, I was wondering if I've been getting income from mainly OnlyFans. How do I file that? Do I have to do it quarterly? How bad is it if I have to do it quarterly and missed it? So, we're talking about filing of income tax returns when you make money from sites like OnlyFans. And this would be applicable if you make money from pretty much any website where you're an independent contractor, meaning you're not working as an employee and you're not getting Form W-2. Essentially, you would have to evaluate your situation and see if you're self-employed. And that would impact your tax situation in the way that I'll describe. Now, before we even get to that, because we're talking some crazy tax terms, how do we determine if we're self-employed being on OnlyFans? Well, the first question is whether the activity that you engage in is continuous, right? So if you do it on a regular basis throughout the year, or if it's your main source of income, chances are it's continuous and regular, all right? So that makes the income essentially self-employment income. Now, on top of that, if you have what's known as net income of over $400, and net income is your total income that you make from the site minus your business expenses that I'll touch on in a little bit. If the net is over $400, you have to file a tax return with Schedule C and Schedule SE attached as well, and that would help you calculate your self-employment income. Now, what are we talking about in terms of business expenses? Well, let's take a look at Schedule C, and that's going to give us a little bit of information on that. So, on Schedule C, we'll see that it's on the IRS website here. We can take a look at it, and you'll notice that it allows you to report your income right here, and where it gets interesting is in the expenses area. So, you can reduce the income that you have from self-employment purposes with these expenses. So let's say if you make $10,000 from OnlyFans, but your business expenses are $5,000, then you're really only going to be taxed on that $5,000 net income from self-employment. Let's take a look at some of these expenses. There are advertising, commissions and fees, contract labor. So if you have somebody else that you're paying to partake in your OnlyFans presentation, then that would constitute contract labor. Then we have insurance, we have office expenses, supplies, utilities, what have you. And if you have an area of your home that you use exclusively for business throughout the year and no other purpose, then you may also be able to take some of those expenses related to the home. So if you rent your home, you may be able to take a portion of the rent. If you purchase your home, you may be able to deduct a portion of the property taxes and the mortgage interest. But that really gets ahead of where we are right now. Let's just consider the fact that you have your income from self-employment. If you do OnlyFans on a continuous, regular basis with a profit motive, you have the income from self-employment. Then you can offset that with expenses that are applicable. Now, in very general terms, expenses to be deductible need to be ordinary and necessary. So someone that's partaking in your particular business, you'd have to see if out of 100 people that partake in that business, how many of them would have a particular expense. That would indicate how ordinary it is. And also, is it necessary for the production that you're doing or for the activities that you're doing? That's the necessary part. So ordinary and necessary, those are the two key words. And in general, you would be able to offset your self-employment income with the expenses that are applicable to that business. So theoretically, if you have $10,000 in income, $10,000 in expenses, the net tax impact is zero. And since the net from self-employment, the net amount that you're making is less than $400, you don't even have to file Schedule SE. So it's a little bit more streamlined there. But you just report that on Schedule C and go from there. Anyway, so that is the situation pertaining to the reporting of the income and expenses. Now, the next question is, what about estimated payments, right? Because if you have estimated payments that you have to make throughout the year, the deadlines typically, if we avoid the COVID extensions and all that, are April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and January 15th of the next year. So those are the 4 payments that you have to make for tax purposes at the federal level and typically also at the state level, although the deadlines and the amounts can vary there. But you can think of it that every quarter you should have this idea that, hey, if I'm making money from self-employment, I probably should be making some sort of estimated payments if I have net income throughout the year. And the way you calculate that is if the total tax for the year is going to be $100,000 at the federal level, let's say, and let's say you had $20,000 withheld on a Form W-2, then the $80,000 difference needs to typically be paid over 4 payments throughout the year on that payment schedule that I specified. And if you don't make those payments on time, you may be subject to the assessment of penalties and interest in many cases. So there's kind of a few ways to approach this. I have some business clients that say, hey, Alex, listen, my business is variable. Some months I do great, some months I don't do as well. So I'd rather have my cash on me. I don't want to pay it in throughout the year. So in those cases, we still calculate what the payments would be, so clients know to set that money aside so it's available once they file their tax return. But those clients end up paying the taxes, penalties, and interest when it comes time to file their returns because they haven't made those payments throughout the year. They held on to their cash. I have another school of clients that says, hey, Alex, I don't want to pay the government $1 more than they deserve. So tell me the amounts, tell me the payment schedule, and I'm going to make estimated payments throughout the year. And those clients typically have a situation where they're just making the payments of taxes. Now, to estimate those estimated payments, you essentially need to create a projected return for the year, and it gets a little bit involved there. So having a tax professional help you is probably advisable in that respect. But once you go through that process, you'll know what amounts you need to pay for federal and state purposes and on what dates. So it's really helpful to minimize penalties and interest. And if you have net income from self-employment, especially if it's significant, meaning your income is a lot higher than your expenses throughout a particular year, then there is a good chance that you may need to make estimated payments. You can either pay them when you file your tax returns, along with penalties and interest, or you could pay them throughout the year and avoid the penalties and interest in many cases. There's also a method of annualizing your income that gets a little bit more involved beyond the scope of this video, but in very general terms, if you have income coming in from websites for which you work as an independent contractor and you receive Form 1099 miscellaneous, there's a good chance that if you do it on a regular basis, you're self-employed. Now, if there's net income from self-employment, that's significant, good chance you're going to be filing Schedule C, which we took a look at, and also Schedule SE, which is going to help you calculate your self-employment income. From there, it's really a matter of figuring out if you need to make estimated payments throughout the year. If you do, you will know the amounts, you'll know the payment schedule, and you should be all set to dominate OnlyFans. Should I make an OnlyFans site where I talk about taxes in a sultry, seductive voice? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll consider it if it gets a lot of good feedback. So that's the situation in a nutshell. Hopefully, this helps clear some of the mystery around OnlyFans and tax reporting and all this good stuff. And hopefully, X, Echo, Bravo, X, this answered your question. And hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching.